The bruise on my left forearm was the size of a thumbprint, purple-black in the center, yellowing at the edges. I was 12 years old, standing in the kitchen doorway, holding my arm out to my father like evidence in a courtroom. "Dad," I said, "look." My father, Michael Bennett, set down his coffee mug on the granite countertop, the same countertop Linda had shoved me against 18 hours earlier when I had forgotten to unload the dishwasher. He looked at my arm, not closely, not with alarm, just a glance, the way you glance at a traffic light that's already green. Then he looked at me. "Linda's been under a lot of stress at work, Sarah. You need to stop provoking her." I stared at him. I was 12. I didn't know the word gaslighting yet, but I knew what it felt like. That moment, standing in the kitchen with a bruise the shape of my stepmother's thumb, watching my father choose her comfort over my safety, that's the moment I learned that some people will ignore anything if acknowledging it requires them to act. 10 years later, at 2:47 in the morning on a Tuesday, my father walked into the emergency room at Mercy General Hospital with chest pain, shortness of breath, and a blood pressure reading of 168/102. The triage nurse took his vitals, asked his medical history, and assigned him to treatment room 4. Then she looked at the attending physician roster, saw my name, Dr. Sarah Bennett, and called me over. "The attending for tonight is Dr. Bennett," she said to my father. "She'll be with you shortly." My father looked up from the gurney. His face, already pale from the chest pain, went completely white. "Sarah," his voice cracked, "that's exactly what happened to me. And if you've ever had a parent choose their own comfort over your safety, if you know what it feels like to be gaslit about your own bruises, this story is for you. Before I go on, please like and subscribe if this story speaks to you. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I love knowing where you're listening from. My name is Sarah Bennett. I'm 26 years old. Let me take you back to Columbus, Ohio, the year I turned 12. The month my father remarried. The day I met the woman who would spend the next 8 years teaching me that some people hurt you and some people let them. The house at 1847 Maple Ridge Drive was a 4-bedroom colonial in a neighborhood where every lawn was professionally landscaped, and every driveway held at least one luxury SUV. My father, Michael Bennett, was a senior accountant at a firm downtown. Comfortable income, stable career, the kind of life that looked perfect from the street. My mother had died when I was 9, breast cancer. Stage 4. It moved fast, 1 year from diagnosis to funeral. My father grieved the way men of his generation grieved, silently, privately, by working longer hours and speaking less at home. Then he met Linda Harmon at a work conference in Cleveland. She was 38, a project manager, recently divorced, with perfectly styled blonde hair and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. They dated for 8 months. Then he proposed. The wedding was small. Immediate family only. I wore a navy dress my grandmother had bought me. Linda wore cream. Nobody asked if I was okay with this. Linda moved into 1847 Maple Ridge Drive 3 days after the wedding. She brought 14 boxes, a leather couch my father didn't like but didn't refuse, and a rule book I didn't know existed until I had broken half the rules. "The kitchen," Linda announced on day 4, "is my space. If you're going to use it, clean up immediately. No dishes in the sink. No crumbs on the counter. No exceptions." I was 12. I made toast one morning and left the butter out while I ate. Linda walked in, saw the butter dish, and slammed it into the refrigerator so hard the glass shelves rattled. Then she turned to me. "Are you incapable of following simple instructions?" I said I was sorry. She said sorry doesn't clean up messes. Then she left the room. My father, reading the newspaper at the dining table, said nothing. The first bruise appeared 2 months after the wedding. I had left my backpack on the stairs. Linda was carrying laundry down and didn't see it. She tripped, caught herself on the railing, and dropped the basket. Clothes tumbled down the stairs. She turned around, walked back up, and grabbed my arm. Her fingers dug into the soft part above my elbow. Her face was 6 inches from mine. Do you have any idea how dangerous that was? What if I had fallen? What if I had broken my neck? Her grip tightened. You need to think, Sarah. Use your brain. She let go and walked downstairs. I stood there rubbing my arm. By that evening, 4 small oval bruises had appeared where her fingers had been. I showed my father after dinner. We were alone in the garage. He was sorting recycling. I rolled up my sleeve. Dad, look. She grabbed me. He glanced at my arm. Did you leave your bag on the stairs? I nodded. He went back to sorting bottles. Then don't leave things on the stairs, Sarah. Linda could have been hurt. That was it. No concern, no conversation, just a redirect back to what I had done wrong. The bruises faded in a week, but the lesson stayed. If I showed him evidence, he would find a way to make it my fault. Over the next 8 years, the pattern became so predictable I could script it. Linda would lose her temper. She would grab, shove, or slam something near me. I would end up with a bruise, a scratch, or once, a chipped tooth when she shoved me and I hit the corner of the bathroom counter. I would show my father, and he would explain it away. She's stressed at work. You know how to push her buttons. Maybe if you didn't argue so much, just stay out of her way. At 14, Linda grabbed my arm during an argument about me staying out past curfew. I had been at the library. She didn't believe me. She grabbed my forearm with both hands and squeezed until I heard myself make a sound I didn't recognize. When she let go, I had 2 sets of fingerprints, 5 bruises on each arm, dark purple, perfectly shaped. I took a photo with my phone, a cheap flip phone my father had given me for emergencies, and showed it to him the next morning. He was eating breakfast. I set the phone on the table next to his cereal bowl. Dad, look at this. He looked. He sighed. Then he said, Sarah, what did you do to make her that angry? I didn't do anything, I said. I was at the library. He pushed the phone back across the table. Just stay out of her way. Try not to make things harder than they need to be. That was the day I stopped expecting him to protect me. At 16, I stopped showing him the bruises altogether. Instead, I started documenting them. I bought a small notebook from CVS, $1.29, spiral bound, and I logged every incident. Date, time, what happened, what was said, and whether my father was home. I took photos with better angles, better lighting. I asked my guidance counselor, Mrs. Ramish, to take photos of bruises I couldn't photograph myself, the ones on my back, my shoulders. She asked if I wanted to file a report. I said no. Not yet. She said, if you change your mind, I'm a mandated reporter. I know, I said. I'm not ready. What I didn't tell her was that I had already tried the system once when I was 14. A teacher had noticed bruises and called CPS without asking me. A caseworker came to the house. Linda answered the door with a calm smile, offered coffee, explained that I was clumsy, that I played soccer and was always covered in bruises, that teenagers exaggerate for attention. The caseworker looked around. Clean house, stocked fridge, no signs of neglect. She asked me a few questions. Linda stood in the doorway. My father stood behind her. I said I was fine. The case closed within a week. Linda didn't speak to me for 3 days after that. When she finally did, she leaned close and whispered, if you ever try that again, you'll regret it. I believed her. So instead of reporting, I documented. And I planned. I knew I had to leave. But I also knew leaving required money, a plan, and a future Linda and my father couldn't touch. I started researching scholarships at the library. I stayed after school for tutoring I didn't need just to avoid going home. I worked weekends at a grocery store, $9 an hour, and saved every dollar in an account my father didn't know about. And I decided I wanted to be a doctor. Not because I loved medicine, though I came to love it later, but because I wanted to be the kind of person who helped people my father had failed to help. People like me. At 17, I applied to 7 colleges. I got into 5. I chose Ohio State, full-ride academic scholarship, pre-med track. The day I got the acceptance letter, I told my father and Linda over dinner. Linda set down her fork. "So you're leaving?" "Yes," I said, "in August." She looked at my father. "Michael, are you going to let her just leave?" My father cut his steak, methodical, unbothered. "She's 18 in July. She can do what she wants. That was it. No congratulations. No pride. Just permission to disappear." I moved into my dorm on August 19th, 2015. I took one suitcase, my savings account information, and the notebook with 6 years of documentation I hoped I would never need. I didn't go home for Thanksgiving. I didn't go home for Christmas. My father called twice, both times to ask if I was coming home. Both times I said no. He didn't ask why. For the next 8 years, I worked. Pre-med at Ohio State, med school at Case Western, residency in emergency medicine at Mercy General Hospital in Columbus. I worked double shifts, took every learning opportunity, and studied until the pages of Gray's Anatomy blurred together. On my 26th birthday, I became Dr. Sarah Bennett, attending physician, emergency medicine. I had gone from a girl whose bruises were ignored to a doctor whose job was to see what others missed. The irony wasn't lost on me. My father and I spoke maybe twice a year. Christmas texts. Birthday calls that lasted under 3 minutes. He never asked about my work. I never offered. Linda and I didn't speak at all. I assumed I would never see either of them again. I was wrong. Tuesday, March 14th, 2024, 2:47 in the morning. I was 6 hours into a 12-hour shift in the Mercy General ER. Quiet night. A sprained ankle, 2 cases of flu, 1 kid who had swallowed a Lego. Then the triage nurse, Dana, called me over. "Dr. Bennett, we've got a 58-year-old male, chest pain, elevated blood pressure, possible cardiac event. Room 4. I pulled the chart. Name, Michael Bennett. I stopped walking. Dana looked at me. "You know him. He's my father," I said. She waited. My hands were completely steady. That surprised me. I walked to treatment room 4, pulled back the curtain, and saw my father lying on a gurney in a hospital gown, EKG lead stuck to his chest, oxygen cannula in his nose. He looked older, grayer, smaller somehow. Then he saw my name tag. Dr. Sarah Bennett, attending physician, emergency medicine. His face went white. "Sarah." His voice cracked. "Thank God you're here." I stood at the foot of his bed and looked at the man who had spent 8 years watching bruises appear on my body and doing nothing. "Mr. Bennett," I said, not Dad. "Mr. Bennett, I've reviewed your chart. Chest pain, elevated blood pressure, shortness of breath. We're going to run an EKG, a troponin test, and a chest X-ray to rule out myocardial infarction." His eyes filled with something I didn't recognize at first. Then I realized it was fear. "Sarah," he said, "I need you to, and I need you to understand something," I said. I looked at him, really looked at him. "For 8 years, I showed you bruises. You told me I was provoking her. You told me to stay out of her way. You told me she was under stress. You never once asked if I was okay." His mouth opened. "Sarah, you chose your comfort over my safety every single time." I paused. "So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to make sure you get excellent care, but I won't be the one providing it. I'll get you another doctor." His hand reached toward me. "Please." I stepped back. "Dana will take your vitals. Dr. Rami will be with you in 10 minutes. He's one of the best cardiologists in the state. You're in good hands." just not mine. I walked out of treatment room 4, pulled the curtain closed behind me, and went to the nurse's station. I paged Dr. Rami, explained the situation briefly. Patient is my father, conflict of interest, need you to take over, and then I went to the staff break room and sat down. My hands were still steady. I wasn't crying. I wasn't angry. I was just done. Dr. Rami came by 20 minutes later. Your father's stable, he said. Likely angina, not a full MI. We're admitting him for observation. He asked if you were coming back. I said no. Rami nodded. Understood. He left. I didn't go back to room 4, not that night. Not the next day when my father was moved to a cardiac unit on the 3rd floor. Not when he was discharged 48 hours later with a prescription for beta blockers and instructions to follow up with a cardiologist. I saw his name on the discharge list. I saw that he had left against medical advice 6 hours early. I assumed he went home. I didn't call to check. 3 days later, my father called me. I was at my apartment, eating takeout and watching a show I wasn't really following. I almost didn't answer. Then I did. Sarah. His voice sounded thin. How are you feeling? I asked. Not good. I need to talk to you. We're talking now. No, I mean in person. Can you come by the house? No, I said. Why not? Because I don't go to that house, Dad. I haven't been there in 8 years. Silence. Then he said something I didn't expect. Linda's gone. I stayed home from work the day after I got out of the hospital. She packed 2 suitcases and left. Said she couldn't do this anymore. I said nothing. I'm alone, Sarah. And I stopped him. Dad, you were alone in that ER for maybe 10 minutes before another doctor took over. I was alone in that house for 8 years. Silence so long I thought he had hung up. I'm sorry, he said finally. For what, specifically? For not protecting you, for letting her, for looking the other way. I leaned back against my couch. It's been 8 years, Dad. Why are you saying this now? Because I almost died. And the one person I needed most wouldn't even stay in the room. His voice cracked. That's what it felt like for you, wasn't it? Every time I walked away, every time I said you were provoking her, you needed me and I left the room. Yes, I said. That's exactly what it felt like. We sat in silence for a long time. Then I said, I'm not ready to see you. I don't know if I ever will be, but I'm glad you're okay, and I'm glad you finally understand. I hung up. I didn't block his number, but I didn't call back either. 6 months later, I got a letter. Handwritten, my father's careful accountant script on cream stationery. It was 4 pages long. In it, he wrote about the first time he saw a bruise and convinced himself it was an accident. About the second time and the third. About how each time it got easier to look away. About how he had married Linda because he didn't want to be alone, and keeping her happy seemed easier than confronting what keeping her happy was costing me. He wrote, I failed you in every way a father can fail a daughter. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just need you to know that I see it now. I see all of it. And I'm sorry. At the bottom of the last page, he wrote, I'm in therapy now. Linda's not coming back. I don't blame her. I'm trying to understand why I let it happen. Why I chose my comfort over your safety. I don't have an answer yet, but I'm looking. I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't believe him, but because some apologies, even real ones, don't erase 8 years. They just acknowledge them, and acknowledgement, while necessary, isn't the same as repair. A year later, my father called on my birthday. I answered. Happy birthday, Sarah. Thank you. I wanted you to know, he said, I closed the house. Sold it last month. Too many bad memories. I'm renting a small place near Grandview, starting over, I guess. That's good, I said, and I meant it. He paused. I know you're not ready, but if you ever are, I would like to buy you dinner. Just to listen, not to explain, just to hear how you're doing. Maybe, I said. Someday. Okay, he said. I'll wait. We hung up. I sat on my balcony with a cup of coffee and thought about the 12-year-old girl holding out her arm, showing a bruise shaped like a thumbprint, asking her father to see her. And I thought about the 26-year-old woman in an ER, looking at that same man, and finally being the one who got to say, "I'll get you another doctor." Both versions of me were real. Both versions mattered, and neither one needed his permission to exist anymore. I'm sitting on my balcony now as I tell you this, morning coffee in a mug I bought myself, wearing scrubs from a 12-hour shift that ended 3 hours ago. I'm tired, but I'm a doctor. I see bruises other people miss. I ask questions other people don't. And when someone shows me a mark and says it's nothing, I look closer. Because I know what nothing looks like when someone's pretending not to see it. My father ignored my bruises because acknowledging them meant acknowledging his failure. And for 8 years, his comfort mattered more than my safety. I didn't become a doctor to punish him. I became a doctor because I needed to be the person I had needed. The one who looks. The one who asks. The one who doesn't walk away. If you're the kid showing bruises to a parent who won't look, I need you to hear this. It's not your fault. You're not provoking anyone. You're not too sensitive. You're not making it up. And one day, you'll be the one deciding who gets to stay in your room. That's my story. Thank you for staying until the end. If someone in your life needs to hear this, send them this video. Subscribe if you haven't. I'll see you in the next one.